Typical. The next door's dog should start yapping right when I click record. Hi guys, it's Jess and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if it is your first time here. For today's video I'm going to be sharing my TBR for my upcoming trip to Chicago, as well as the remainder of September. But before we jump into the books, just to say, if you are new here, please don't forget to click that subscribe button so that you can follow all of my uploads. And if you are an existing subscriber, then I have recently found out that YouTube have changed the way that they sort new uploads. So if you want to be alerted every time I upload, don't forget to click the little bell symbol, and then you'll know every time I upload a video. But onto the books that I plan to read in the month of September. So for my trip to Chicago, I basically have an 8.5-hour flight there, an 8.5-hour flight back, as well as the time that I will be spending in the airport. So I have picked quite a few books to take with me, although I may end up not taking them all. It will entirely depend on the weight of my suitcase when I come to weigh it. In terms of how I'm doing with my previous TBR, I only have a couple of books left over from those, and the two that I'm kind of carrying forward into September are Americana by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie and A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas, and I will link to that TBR video in the description box down below if you want to go and check that out, where I talk about these books in a little bit more detail. So those two books aside, and I'll probably try and read those later on in September, I'm going to share with you now the books that I plan on taking to Chicago. So the first one is the book that I'm currently reading, and I am about 250 pages in, and that is Mad Ship by Robin Hobb. Now I fully expect to be really close to the end of this book by next Tuesday when I fly, but if I'm not, then I will almost definitely be taking this on the plane with me. It's nearly 900 pages long and I'm only like 30% of the way through, so if I even spend one day not reading, then I will almost certainly have to carry this on in my hand luggage. It's a hunk of a book. It's also the sequel to Robin Hobb's Live Ship Traders trilogy, so I can't go into too much detail, but let's just say that this is an adult fantasy which features pirates, dragons, strong kick-ass female characters, and lots of intrigue and interest, and I am absolutely loving it. It's a little bit slower. I've had a couple of people ask me actually whether they will enjoy reading this book, and I would say that it is not particularly plot driven. It's certainly faster than some of her other books, in particular the Farseer trilogy, but I think that, as with most Robin Hobb books, it's about falling in love with the characters, connecting with the characters much more than it is about reading a book that is really fast and driven by plot. So if you are into character driven novels, then I do think that you will like it. If you like your plot to be sharp and snappy and on point, then probably you won't enjoy these as much. Then I feel like it might have something to do with the fact that Robin Hobb is kind of reintroducing dragons into my life. But I bought a book, basically I was on Amazon ordering some stuff for my trip, and this book is one that has been on my radar for quite some time, and I've kind of added it into my basket and taken it out, added it in and taken it out, and ummed and ahed over it, but I just thought, you know what, I'm gonna go for it. And I know very little about it other than the fact that it does feature dragons, and that is Eon by Alison Goodman. Now I think that this is the first book in a duology, and I know so little about it other than I watched a booktuber last year maybe talk about how much they'd really enjoyed it, and I can't now for the life of me remember who that was, but it features dragons, it features the Chinese culture, and I've never really read anything set around the Chinese culture before, so I'm really looking forward to that. And I think that it's a fantasy book, and I think that it's YA, but I'm not really sure. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I thought that it didn't seem that long. It's about dragons. It seems really intriguing, so it's probably the perfect book to read on the plane. And then the final book that I plan on taking with me, I don't realistically think I'm going to get to, but I thought that it was worth packing just in case, and it's only a very small book, and that is Mad Girl, A Happy Life with a Mixed Up Mind by Bryony Gordon. And this is kind of her, I think it's her autobiography about the mental illness issues that she has faced. Bryony Gordon is a well-known journalist here in the UK, and this is her, yeah, I think this is her autobiography about her issues with OCD, bulimia, and just general mental illnesses, and I've been really feeling in the mood alongside, and I think probably it has a lot to do with the fact that I've been reading a lot of fantasy lately, but I quite fancy some non-fiction to get stuck into as well, and this one I've heard nothing but really great things about, so I thought that I'd pop it into my hand luggage, and if I get to it, I get to it, and if I don't, then it can just roll over into the rest of September. And then the final 2 books, I have to admit that I was mainly driven by the fact that I packed up nearly 14 boxes of books to bring to the new house with me, and I haven't actually been able to get at those books, but I did manage to find 1 box of my unread books, so the majority of the books that I'm going to be reading over the next couple of months will probably be pulled from that box, which is not necessarily a bad thing because they do happen to be the books that I've had on my TBR shelf for the longest time, so it probably is something of a blessing that I'm going to have to pull from them. But these 2 books are books that just grabbed my attention, and the first one is Salem Falls by Jodi Picoult. Now, I am a huge Jodi Picoult fan, and I'm not quite sure how this book has managed to slip through the net because I generally read Jodi Picoult books as soon as I can. So the fact that I've had this one, and I know that I've had this one on my shelf for the longest time, makes me just think, what is it about it that had put me off? I'm not really sure. But from what I understand, this is about a teacher who has to face some kind of allegation. I think that it's to do with sexual abuse of one of his pupils, and 4 teenage girls who are kind of intrinsically involved in bringing about this teacher's downfall, and it's sort of questioning whether the teacher is guilty, whether he isn't, and all about dark secrets. And as I would fully expect with a Jodi Picoult book, I feel like I'm going to start questioning some things that I would automatically say are very black and white. So yeah, I don't know much about it, but I'm hoping that it is as good as the other Jodi Picoult books that I've read have been. And then the final book that I hope to read in the month of September is In the Woods. Typically, my camera decided to die right when I was about to start talking about the last book, so I'm sorry if I've slightly changed position, but I was just saying that the very last book that I hope to read in the month of September is In the Woods by Tana French, which is a recent acquisition for me, but one that I've wanted to read for the longest time because I know that a number of booktubers whose opinion I really respect have really enjoyed this. So this is the first book in Tana French's Dublin Squad series, and it basically is about a guy who works for the Dublin Murder Squad who was involved in something with his 2 best friends when he was 12 years old, and then 20 years later he has to go back and kind of face the memories of this thing that happened when he was a child. I don't know much more about it than that. I've tried really hard to avoid spoilers because I just think that this is the type of book that I'm absolutely gonna love, but it is also a chunker, which is why I haven't picked that many books to read in the month of September, because quite a few of the ones that I've chosen are fairly big and fairly chunky, so I'm not entirely sure how far I will get into this during the month of September, but we will see. So there you go, they are the books that I plan on reading in the month of September. Do let me know anything that you plan to pick up in the month of September. As always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to give me the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel for more content, and I will see you all soon.